Hello everyone, this is Pallavi and you are watching Indian Masterminds. For this special Tales from Legion section, we have with us Mr. Rohit Nandan, who is a retired IS officer of 1982 batch and Uttar Pradesh cadre. Not only in the state, Mr. Nandan served several important positions in the center as well, including the CMD of Air India and Secretary for Ministry of Skill Development. Today, we'll talk about his experiences and know his opinion about the hot burning topics from the bureaucracy. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pallavi.
So, sir, first we'll start with this. You must have joined civil services with certain motivation and intention. So, after all these years, do you feel you achieved what you have thought initially?
Pallavi, generally everyone joins the IAS for the prestige, the glamour, and the security that it offers. Well, in the case, I'm sure that all these must have played some role in making my decision as well. But fortunately, I was already in a job at the time when I joined IAS. So I was not desperate for a job. Getting a job was not the priority. I was a teacher in Allahabad University. I was teaching history to the undergraduate classes. And I was quite happy. I was academically oriented. And I had no interest whatsoever in the material aspects of life. So IAS did not interest me from that angle. As far as the prestige and the glamour is concerned, fortunately, the folks in my family were all fairly well-to-do. We had chief ministers, we had judges, chief justices, generals in the army. So therefore, a blue light or a red light actually was not really a great attraction for me. But I was deeply impressed by the ideological orientation of my father. And there were two collectors of Allahabad who motivated me a lot.
Okay.
I did not know them personally. I had heard about them. I had seen them at work. There was one gentleman called Mr. Mahmood Bhatt, and way back in the year 1971-72, he was the collector of Allahabad. The man was a legendary figure. He was known for his discipline. He had tried to remove all the encroachments from Allahabad and to make Allahabad into a beautiful city. I recall that at 4:30 in the morning, he used to come out in his jeep and used to see that if anyone was defecating in the open air along the nalas or other such places, he would drive them away. And encroachments were completely removed in his time. There was a lot of discipline in the town. And there was a meme. People used to say, "I am Mahmood Bhatt, do gaj piche hat."
Oh.
So that was a meme which is stuck in my mind. I remembered it. And he was a great motivator. Then in the year 1978, Allahabad was affected by floods. There was another gentleman called Mr. Bureaucrat, a legendary figure in the IAS, who was the collector of Allahabad at that time. And just a couple of months before the floods struck in Allahabad, there was a student agitation, which Mr. Bureaucrat had dealt with extreme severity, merciless actually. But then when the floods struck Allahabad, this man in half pants wearing, I remember, khaki pants and a solar hat. He used to go out every day, work through the day, through the night on a boat, trying to bring relief to the people. He gave a call to the students of Allahabad to join him in helping Allahabad from getting drowned. And you'll be surprised that in spite of the merciless beating that he had given to the students of Allahabad, Allahabad people came out in large numbers to support him. He became a darling of the people. And he motivated me tremendously. I was inspired by these two people. And I came to realize that IAS is not all power and prestige. It was also hard work. It was also service. And what motivated me to join the IAS was basically this feeling of doing something well for the society. And after a service of about 35 years, when I look back, I feel that I was able to achieve what I had set out to when I joined the service. I was able to do something for the common people, for the poor, for the downtrodden. Fortunately, I got a lot of postings where I could do all this thing as collector, as divisional magistrate, as chief development officer, and especially as secretary disabled welfare, where I could actually do something for the most marginalized of people in the society, that is the disabled. So I actually look back with a lot of satisfaction.
Okay. So could you tell me your best one, like best assignment so far?
Well, it's a long career, 35 years, and I was transferred nearly every year. And there are three postings which just stand out. Two of them are rather unconventional. First, of course, was the CMD of AirIndia, which was, of course, the most difficult, the most challenging job. Then as secretary, disabled welfare. Now, they will be surprised that how can that be a favorite, because that is generally treated as a doghouse by most of the politicians, for most of the officers. Whenever the government is very angry with an officer, he's sent as secretary disabled welfare. But I can assure you that it was one of the most gratifying, one of the most fulfilling postings that I ever had in my life. And then as secretary industrial development to UP, when I was able to establish what is today is the flourishing in film industry of UP. I formulated the film policy, which has of course undergone a number of changes, but today UP has become one of the hottest destinations for filmmakers because of the various policies that we had enunciated at that time. But certainly Air India was my favorite.
So just now you mentioned about that film policy thing. So could you tell us like what went into it and what all you did to make it, formulated that film policy and what was in it?
Pallavi, I was Secretary Industries at that time. And filmmaking was basically as in the rules of business, was the responsibility of the Ministry of the Department of Information. I had been Director Information twice before I became Secretary Industries, but I was a film buff. And everyone knew in the government that I loved going to films. I used to see films on the first day itself. Even the Chief Minister of that time knew about it. And therefore, he assigned the task of formulating the film policy to me. It was not my job, but ultimately he said that this is a guy who actually knows a lot about films. So I was given the responsibility. I knew nothing about film making. I liked films, but I knew nothing about filmmaking. So I first initiated, I made a small policy of a few pages in which I tried to give incentives to the producers to come to UP to make films. And then I circulated it among the top producers of the country and also some of the top actors and directors. I got a feedback that this is not what motivates people. There are many other factors which have got to be taken into account. And the first policy that I had, the draft that I had made, got completely changed. It got expanded into about 40 pages. And we tried to cover nearly every aspect of filmmaking. The most important, of course, was the subsidy that we offered to the people. But we also offered subsidies. That was a time when multiplexes were not in existence. You might have been a small child at that time. Actually, I'm talking about the year 1998. And this is about 24 years back. And I think the only multiplexes that were in existence were in places like Jaipur and a couple of other places. There were not too many multiplexes. But I could see that this is the future of the film industry in this country. And I incorporated a lot of incentives for the multiplexes. It brought me into conflict with the single screen filmmakers, film exhibitors in the state. There was a lot of up and down. There was a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion with those people because it was the established industry. And they felt that if we give these incentives to the multiplexes, then in that case, the single film industry will completely vanish. So we had to see that there was a balance. But I'm so very happy to see that UP was able to attract. We were one of the first states of the country which formulated a film policy. It was the first. There was no other state which at that time had a film policy. UP became the first. And we announced it in Bombay. It was very well received. And I'm very happy to see that today a lot of films are being made in Lucknow, especially a lot of other places of UP. And it has become a fairly thriving industry. And now the Chief Minister, the present Chief Minister, has announced that they'll be setting up a film city in Greater Noida.
Greater Noida, yes. So just now you mentioned that you are also a lover of cinema, and me being a movie buff, can't resist. But I want to ask you, like, any recent film which you watched and that struck your mind recently.
The last film that I saw was Geo, and I found it to be a very interesting film. Though of course too long, it could have been edited much better. But yes, it was an interesting film. That was the last film that I saw. But I keep on seeing films very regularly.
So now, like you also told me that this was so far your best assignment as the CMD of Air India. And if I'm not mistaken, you served in civil aviation for quite a long time and on various
I was there
positions.
For about 7 years.
Yes. And in 2011, you were posted as you were made the CMD. So, like, we all know what happened to Air India. So, according to you, what was the reason that resulted in the decline of Air India?
Actually, the knowledge about Air India has been governed basically by the various journalistic writings that have been in circulation. And I can assure you that the diagnosis of Air India's malaise made by the journalist is completely wrong. Somehow, because of political reasons, because of some internal voices of disgruntled elements within the airline, people have always blamed a particular politician for the decline of Air India. And two major decisions were pointed out as being the major reason for the decline of Air India. One was the decision to purchase 111 planes, and second was the decision to merge Air India and Indian Airlines. I can assure you that having been in the airline and having borne the brunt of the problem of Air India was not because of these reasons. The decline of Air India started in the year 2007. And till 2007, both Air India and Indian Airlines used to make very thin profits, either profits or very thin losses. But in 2007, suddenly everything went haywire. And this was basically because of two major reasons. First was the emergence of the low-cost carriers. The first low-cost carrier came into existence in the form of Deccan Airlines in the year 2004, later followed by Indigo, and then, of course, by SpiceJet. The arrival of the low-cost airlines completely changed the aviation market, and they grew at a very fast pace. Firstly, they came with absolutely new sparkling planes. Two, their cost was low. Whatever was considered to be the cost center for most of the airlines became a revenue center for them. They started selling food. Air India and Jet used to spend money on food. They started earning from food. So the whole economics of the airlines underwent a change. The planes of Air India and of Jet were of a completely different configuration. Normally, an Air India plane would have about 145 to 160 seats. The planes of Indigo used to have 188 seats. And therefore, the cost per seat was much lower than of a full-service airline. These airlines struck us like lightning. And unfortunately, at that time, Air India had to undergo through a process of destabilization. Between 2007 and 2011, 4 CMDs were changed. At a time when they required visionary leadership, no CMD could stay for long. And as a result, at a time when Air India should have been fighting the low-cost carriers, we were fighting with ourselves, with our own people, between ourselves, and therefore valuable time was lost. The second important factor that led to the decline of Air India was the Lehman crisis of 2007, when the petrol prices went up to $144. So that was a factor, that was a phenomenon which affected all airlines, not only in India, but all over the world. Air India was more affected because, as I told you, between 2007 and 2011, there were 4 CMDs for short periods of time. And at a time when there was need for stability, there was no stability. The third and the most important reason for the decline of Air India was, as according to me, the late arrival of the 787s, that is the Dreamliners. Okay. When in 2004, the purchases of 111 planes was decided, it was based on certain assumptions. The arrival of Dreamliners was considered to be of tremendous importance for the airline. It was considered to be the workhorse. It was a very fuel-efficient airline, light aircraft, the best in the world at that time, the last of the technologies to enter into the aviation market. But that plane, which should have arrived in 2008, when the prices of fuel was at the highest, was not delivered to us in that year, but was delivered in the year 2012. That completely destroyed the economics of the airline. As a result, the airline was compelled to deploy planes which were completely uneconomical. We then deployed the 777s, LRs, and ERs, which were fuel guzzlers for small flights, like to London, which is an 8-hour flight, to France, which is an 8-hour flight, to Germany, which is an 8-hour flight, or Hong Kong, which is a 5-hour flight. All these flights were on 777s, which were fuel guzzlers. They are supposed to do flights which are not less than 10 to 12 hours. we started doing flights of 8 hours with those planes, using more fuel. The engines were more affected, the tires were more affected, and they wore off more easily. As a result, the Air India economics went completely turtle. It is only in the year 2012 when the 787s came into Air India that our economics again came back to the normal. And within a short period of time, most of the routes that had become negative turned positive. And by the year 2015-16, if you recall, that was the last year when I was the CMD, the airline did, for the first time, yield an operating profit. So I personally feel there were these three reasons. First is the high prices of fuel. Second was the arrival of the low-cost airlines, and third was the late arrival of Dreamliners, and not the traditional ones, ex-politician merger, and so it might be quite different from what you have been hearing about Air India.
Yes, definitely. So it was really, I guess people will be more, people will know like exactly what happened.
Yes. I think these myths need to be broken. These myths need to be cleared.
Yes. So now, I guess you served in UP State Public Services Tribunal also. After your retirement or before only?
It was a post-retirement. It was a post-retirement assignment. Actually, I was given that assignment on the day I retired.
Yes.
I took over the next day.
Yes, you were vice chairman. And I read a piece. It was about how you unearthed a scandal of underweighing LPG. And it is a very interesting story, and I want you to tell, like how it happened and what was it.
It was quite by accident. It had nothing to do with my being the vice chairman of the tribunal. It helped me in the simple reason because when I was in the normal government service, I used to come back home at around 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the house. And so what was happening in the house was never not my concern. It was all being looked after either by my mother or by my servants. But when you come back home at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the judicial system, you spend more time looking after the house. And I suddenly saw that one day when I was sitting, the delivery man came with the gas, and I just asked my servant, can you weigh it? And when he weighed it, I found that instead of 30 kgs, it was weighing only 22 kgs. So it was short by 8 kgs. Now I was quite surprised. First impulse was to make a complaint to the CMD of Indian Oil Company. But then I thought that this is going to take, this is not my personal problem only. It is a problem which must be plaguing all others as well. So I wrote a small piece on Facebook. I was not very active on the Facebook, but I felt that it is time to now educate others. Now that I'm a retired man, I should educate others about what are the type of problems that they can face. And it became a sensation. It became very viral. Yes. Then some journalist noticed it, and he took my interview and then published an article in the Times of India. And the Facebook article as well as the Times of India article was noticed by the people at the top. The CMD of Indian Oil immediately contacted me. A team was sent to meet me. And I told them that it is not my personal problem only. I'm sure that you will do something to correct it, but please see to it that others also don't have to go through the same problem. And I must compliment them. They took action within 3 days. The dealer, the vendor was punished. She was fined 1.5 lakh rupees. And of course, since then, now I do it as a matter of practice that every time the gas is delivered, I ask my servants. And now that I have all the time in the world for myself, I tell them to wait. And I'm very happy to tell you that for the last nearly 4 years, there's been no problem of underweight. So that was quite by accident.
Yes, I know, but it was really interesting. That's why I asked you, and I wanted you to share. Okay, so now coming to this central deputation thing, like recently there have been a lot of debate around central deputation of all India services officers. And if we see your career, you have spent quite a long time in center. So I want to know, like, what is exactly the issue? Is it only the shortage of officer due to which the center and state are locking horns, or officers themselves don't want to serve at the center because of some personal reasons?
Well, during the last nearly about a decade, I see that there's been a change in the perception of the officers. When I went to the center in the year 2009, at that time, there used to be a race to go to the center. Every officer wanted to go to the center because it was considered that his career would not be complete without going to the center. And I recall that I was not a very connected type of an officer. I was not very well networked. I was just focusing on my work. But one of my colleagues, one of my friends told me, Rohit, going to the center is like a project. You've got to start working upon it. You have got to see what vacancies are going to rise in the next 3 years. You have got to contact the right ministers and meet the right officers in the center. Now, I thought that it was all beyond me.
Mm-hmm.
I was very lucky that I was picked up and I did not have to meet even my own minister. Mr. Praful Patel was quite a was known for this thing that he picks up people and he chooses people. But you'll be surprised that I was picked up for the Ministry of Civil Aviation without even meeting with the minister. Only the secretary interviewed me and he called me. As a fact, I never approached him. He called me, he interviewed me for a couple of minutes, and then after that, I was appointed. But now, over a period of time, I see that less and less officers want to go to the center.
Yes.
This is because of two reasons. Firstly, that officers started realizing that there's not much to do in the center. And in the state, if you are doing something, you are able to see it reach a fruition. You are able to see the fruits of what you have done. In the center, you are far removed. And therefore, I see that less officers now want to go to the center. Secondly, the general wherewithal. After all, whatever we might say in idealism, that after all, we are here to serve the people and this and that. But the fact is that officers have a life. They have got children. They have got wives. They require some sort of a physical comfort, which they don't get in the government of India. And at that time, it was very difficult to get a house in the government of India. There were no vehicles available for officers at the lower level. So I think that people feel more physically and materially at comfort in the state and they don't want to go there. And it is this desire not to go to the center which has started now causing a pinch at the center. And if you have a look at the structure of the government of India now, you will see that in most of the ministries, there are officers of other departments who are managing it, like Ministry of Railways, Ministry of Revenue Services. There will be very few IS officers in the center now. And that is the reason why I think that the center is now insisting that every officer must do a stint in the government of India.
Yeah. Yes,
but the solution to this, Pallavi, I personally feel is not the way it is being done. I personally feel that what the government of India and the state government should do is that they must now fix a career chart, the career route of every officer. They must make it compulsory that you have to do 5 years of this, you have got to do 5 years of this, you have to do 5 years of this on a compulsory basis. I must know that, say, in the 10th year of my career, I have to go to the center. I will plan my life accordingly. The education of my children, my wife's career, and every son will be then in that case planned in that manner. Now, suddenly at some day, the government of India says, I want this officer, send him. How does there is a third aspect of this triangle. There is a center, there is the state, but there is an officer. He has a life. Job is one part of his life. He has a family. He has got many other social commitments, and they are going to be taken care of. So it is my very strong conviction that there must be a job chart, a sort of not a job chart, but a career chart for every officer, and everyone must know in which year he will do what in his career. I think that is the only solution to this.
Yes, definitely. An officer also need a stable life.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
See, at a certain stage of life, your children's education is important. Your wife might be working, her career is important. You might have parents whose health and their medical facilities are all at stake. So how can you just say that today I like this officer and I want to take him, or I am angry with this officer, therefore I'm sending him to the center? This is not the way the officer should be treated.
Definitely, sure. So now, there every time there is people talk about like that this officer or the whole system is influenced by politics and all. So I want to know like how much the political influence has in fact impacted the working of IS as a service, and has it increased over the past year, or the situation has been similar always, like from the start only?
Pallavi, if you've been following the bureaucracy, you would see that this has been a complaint of all officers, for not only of my vintage, but for people who preceded me by 2 decades. There's always been you can say some sort of a tense relationship between the politicians and the bureaucracy. And this is basically because both of us don't understand each other's role. If I was to tell you, you are a lady and you will understand it, I think so very well, that right from the beginning, when a child is born or when a girl child is born, she's told that when you grow up and you get married, you will have an evil person waiting for you in your in-laws' house, and that is your mother-in-law. And it might not in reality happen, but there
Yes.
is a problem. There is something in the back of your mind. My relationship with my mother is going to be very tense or very bad. This is exactly what happens with the bureaucrats also. All the time, the younger officers or people who are aspiring to get into the IAS are told that the politicians are evil, and they're going to compel you to do things which are not good. And as a result, when we enter into the service, there is already a made-up mind,
Yeah,
and this causes a
preconceived.
lot of problems. You have got to understand, appreciate this thing that we are living in a democracy. The politicians have a assigned role, and they are as much responsible for the welfare of this country and for the governance of this country as is the IAS or any other service. And both of us have got to appreciate it. We have got to learn to live with us, with each other. We must learn to treat the other not as a foe, but as a friend. But this is more so in the initial phases of life. When we are young collectors, young subdivisional magistrates, we find that we are continuously at war with the local politicians because everything that they say is looked upon as some sort of an encroachment into our rights or into our responsibilities. But in reality, this might not be so. They are an important source of feedback. They represent the people, and I can assure you that even the best of officers do not have the knowledge of the ground as a good politician has. They live with those people. They represent them. They understand their aspirations and their problems, and they can give us a feedback which we can never otherwise get. And this is something which gradually we learn, and you will see that as we grow in life, as we become more mature, our relations to the politicians tend to become more sober, more mature.
Yes.
As far as whether it has increased or not, I personally feel that the politicians have, over a period of time, become more aggressive. No doubt about it. When I was younger, I remember that there was a very decent relationship. There were obviously moments of conflict, but generally they were all sorted out, either by the collector or by the commissioner. Somebody would intervene and things would be sorted out. But I now feel that the politicians also have become very aggressive. They have become more conscious of their rights. They know that they have a place in the society and in this political system, and therefore they would like to be accommodated more than they used to do when I joined service in the year 1982. So I think that yes, the role of the politicians has increased over a period of time, both for the good as well as for the bad.
Yes. So how can, if any officer doesn't want to be, influenced by them, how can he, assure that he is politically neutral and he works, he do what he wanted to do? Like, how can he make sure about it?
Well, we see, I think so that you have yourself said that the most important quality that an officer has to cultivate is neutrality.
Yes.
You tend to become, to actually attract more negative feelings from a politician if you become aligned with some political party or some ideology. If you are neutral, you might be inconvenient to the politicians for some time, but after that they recognize that this man is like this, and they will not like to insist on you to do something which they know that you will not do. And for those of us who have tried to remain neutral, we never had a problem with the politician. Of course, there will be occasions that they will say that you have got to post this lekpal here, you have got to post this subdivisional magistrate there. And these conflicts are bound to happen in any system, and you have got to know how to reconcile them. The first thing is neutrality. Second thing is consistency. You can't be inconsistent. You cannot have one policy for one politician or one political party and another policy for another politician or another. So I think so that these two qualities, if they are cultivated by an officer, if he is fair, if he is honest, he is consistent, and he is neutral, his relationship with the politicians tend to be more stable.
Okay. And now, sir, like, what are you doing nowadays? Like, now that you are retired and you have...
I'm really enjoying life. I can tell you that people are very frightened of retiring, but this is like death. It has to happen to everyone, and I'm enjoying it. The initial phase, of course, was more enjoyable in the sense that I used to travel a lot. I used to to read a lot. Now, of course, it's becoming slightly boring because I do not know what to do after 10 o'clock in the morning. There was a time when I used to go to office, but I'm gradually getting reconciled to it, and I'm looking forward to travel more now.
Okay, so like anything in front of academics, like there are officers who have, who have joined, who are taking classes in in various institutes, and since you have already been part of academia, so anything on that front, or
Yes,
writing
that I
book?
keep on doing all the time. That I keep on doing all the time. Whenever
Okay.
anybody invites me to give a lecture on any subject of current affairs or perhaps about my career as an IAS officer and what IAS means, I heartily accept it because I feel that I'm being able to guide people and to add some value to their life. So that I keep on doing very regularly. I read a lot. I have read, I think, more books during the last 6 months than I had did in the last 6 years. Continuously, my Kindle is always with me all the time. And
Okay.
this is a constant companion till about 1 o'clock in the night. I keep on reading. So I've been able to actually enrich myself a lot.
Okay. So, lastly, I want you to, give a message to the youngsters who have joined the services or are aspiring to be part of civil services soon.
See, my message is based on my own experience in this service. I can assure the youngsters that this is the best service that they can look forward to. There might be more money in other jobs. There might be perhaps better career prospects. They might travel to foreign countries more. But I can assure them that the type of opportunities that life in the IS gives is something that they cannot even imagine that any other job can give them. It is a job which gives you an opportunity to work for the people. Even if you're not very public oriented, at ideational level, you are able to influence the policies of the government. You are able to contribute to the development of the country. I think this is a job which has got absolutely no comparison. They should look forward to this job. They should not compare themselves with the private sector. It is a conscious decision that we make when we decide to join the IS. We should not try to compare ourselves with our MBA friends who are earning more in America, or perhaps our IIT friends who are earning more in some other country. We have decided to remain in this country. We've decided to serve the people and to join a job which has limited financial benefits. You must be happy with this thing, but try to make out of whatever this job offers to you by way of content. It is a tremendous opportunity to contribute to the country to this country. And my last and the most important advice is never join the IS for any financial gain. It is, if you're joining IS for that, then you are going for the wrong job.
Yes. Okay. So thank you so much, sir. It was really nice talking to you. I hope that our viewers will, take something out of it, and the aspirants for civil services will also be enriched by your thoughts and your experiences. Thank you so much for sparing time with us and allowing me this opportunity. It was really a great pleasure.
Thank you, Pallavi, for having me on this platform and to talk to the people. Thanks you very much.